All right, welcome to this session of the Family Table, where we are having conversations that change the way that we parent.
We are Cori and Rich Clausen. We are in the thickets of parenting right now. Our kids are between the ages of, we have 4 of them, they're between the ages of 6 and 12, and we need as much help and perspective as we can get. So we are super excited to welcome some very good friends of ours, Brooke and Joel James. Hi, welcome you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Can you introduce yourselves to us?
Yep, we've been married for about 28 years. We have 7 kids. Our first 4 are biological, and then about almost 8 years ago, we adopted our 3 youngest from Ethiopia. They were 4, 5, and 6. Now we've got ages 12, 13, 14, 17, 19, 21, and 23. Our 23-year-old's the only one married and out of the house, so if you're doing the math, that means we have 4 teenagers in the house right now, and it's been the longest summer ever.
Yes.
Especially with an early start to the summer, right?
Yes, starting in March. No end.
Exactly.
Okay, so we never feel qualified as parents.
Right.
And I trust that that's probably the same for a lot of people, or I hope it is, because we don't feel that way. But I remember especially when we first brought our daughter Kinsey out to the car, I remember the nurse strapped her into her car seat from the hospital, carried her out for us like she didn't trust us to carry her in the car seat, strapped her into the base of the car seat, checked it all out, and then just said goodbye and turned around and walked away. And Cori and I just looked at each other, and we were like,
No.
are you kidding?
No,
where's the instruction manual?
we don't know what we're doing. Doesn't she know we don't know what we're doing?
Is there a return policy? And what is it? And we are not qualified to drive home. So to be honest, it's just been iterations of that for 12 years.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's
No
why we're
idea what
hoping to
doing.
have a good conversation today.
Iterations for 23 years.
Yeah,
So
there you go. Exactly.
We certainly have many stories. We're certainly experienced, but we're not experts in parenting. One thing that comes to mind is 2012. We had been parents for 15 years. So you think, you're getting kind of good at this, more wins than losses and kind of catching on to things.
They're all alive at least still,
Yeah,
right?
not worried about, getting them in the car and car seats, things like that. But, God throws a wrench in things and shows you how much little you know. For us, we showed up in a foreign country and became immediate parents to 3 children that don't speak English. And talk about starting over and feeling like you don't know what you're doing. And what are we doing? That was a game changer.
Yeah.
This session, Cori and I would really like to talk to you guys about the health of our kids while they grow. So physical, spiritual, emotional health. They just play such an important part in our kids being able to interact with us, able to interact with other people, and trying to help them be who we want them to be when they grow up. So I don't know if any of those 3 areas are a trigger for you guys, or if you could talk into that a little bit.
Definitely. I would say we've focused a lot, pretty much the whole time, and maybe even a bigger focus over the last 8 years, but on the emotional health of our children has always been paramount. Not that spiritual and physical aren't important and part of our upbringing with them as well, but really just them to feel secure, to feel loved and accepted and special. I mean, I think all those areas, but spending time with them, obviously, when they're really little, playing with their toys with them, finding things that they enjoy and spending time with them that way, and them to know I'm there, even though if I'm not there all day, Dad's going to be there at night and tuck me in and pray with me and be with me, and which builds skin connection and security. And so early on, that's kind of what I remember as some of those special and important times.
And it's something we actually still do with kids almost into their teen years. We, head up and check in with them before bed, often pray with them. I think it's kind of an unusual thing, but it's been a good point of connection. We've got a lot of people in our house, and we have so one-on-one time in the house is really hard to do. But one-on-one time at bedtime seems to be a good connect point. So it's kind of really a practical way we can do a check-in.
when we've hung out with you guys, I was talking to Cori last time we left your house. I loved it. Joel, I think you were sitting on the couch, and
It was Hillary.
I think it was Hillary just came over and like sat right next to you and just like snuggled right into you.
just kind of give you a hug.
Which I'm like, oh my gosh, our daughter Kinsey, she would never do that.
You know, she's
how
in
do you,
middle school.
how do you keep that kind of connectivity?
Yeah. As far as daughters, I don't know. That's always been a blessing. I've always had very snuggly physical touch daughters for the most part, and there are different personalities and people that obviously that's one of their love languages, and some it's not. So that came kind of natural, and I'm a physical touch guy, so I've always snuggled with my girls. And actually funny, as they got older, a lot of them, they would continue, even in the high school years, college, and some of them, if we'd be walking, they'd want to hold my hand, which is wonderful, but you also feel just a little bit awkward at times. Because, you just feel like there's people watching. This is my daughter. I've got this grown, beautiful girl holding my hand. But at the same time, warms my heart, or in the car and want to hold my hand. And so I think just starting off from just the earliest days, always doing that. But anyway, I've always been the sports dad, which means I take them to every game as possible, obviously, which also gets difficult with more children. And so if they're in clubs or things like that, Brooke would be holding down the fort, and I'd be spending weekends, Saturdays, all day, running to games. But it was always one-on-one time with my daughter or my son, driving places, going there, spending time with them. I was a coach early on several of my kids' sports teams, but which I enjoyed, but I felt like I gave that up because I started having too many kids, and I would miss out on other kids' games. And I didn't want to be, I want to be a dad. I don't want to be their coach. And so I gave that up, and so I could be at more games. So I'm not a loud cheer, but you know what? Dad's there. And that's how you build a connection, is you're there. And so that's one of the best ways. Even as they get older, I feel like that's a connection, is just you show up. You're there. You're there for them.
So one thing I heard you say in there is physical touch, connectivity with daughters, with sons. I feel like emotional connection is tough for me. I'm a 5 on the Enneagram, which is a thinker, live in my head, like that's where I am. And that emotional connectivity, I'm sorry, Cori, but it's just not strong in me. And so I've spent some time on that. I mean, did you guys dig into that with your kids, or have you used that in an intentional way to connect with your kids emotionally?
Absolutely. Well, first we looked at the love languages, especially with our years ago, with our older kids, and kind of were able to peg them. I know you're not ever supposed to peg them, but that's what we do.
You know what their love languages are.
You can, and that really is huge. I mean, especially like, for example, I have 2 that are gifts, which is kind of a weird. Joel and I aren't.
It's not weird. It's weird to us. We're not gifts.
Sorry, we're not gifts. 2 of our kids are gifts, and so it is. It was hard for me because it tends to come across like they're into material things, which was not
or
what
maybe
we want.
you're buying their love by giving a gift, right?
Exactly. But actually, the 2 that have that are actually just touched by you. It's more of a you thought of them, so you got this. So it really, I had to really understand that it wasn't about the monetary value of the gift or the big deal. It was about the thought behind it, or that I connected that with you. And so.
And that's how they show love too, naturally, then, as they give little gifts.
So you got to make sure you smile when you receive the
you gotta be
painting.
thankful and really grateful for
Exactly.
And one of the practical things that I do to kind of let my kids know I've thought about them is get their favorite kinds of food. We're kind of we eat dinner together every night. There's a lot of us. And so either preparing favorite meals or just when you're at the store, getting something that that they like, and then mentioning it to them. And again, we got 4 teenagers, so there's lots of going through a lot of food, and it's
important. Food is important to teenagers.
Food is important, and we have one son food is very important to
Yeah.
him. And so he really feels love when, I've gotten something or we're having some meal.
Yeah.
And, that's okay. I mean, that's a connection that I have with each of them, as I remember them.
So really being students of your kids. So the love language, the Enneagram, getting to know your kids, because then you can connect with them. The more you get to know them then, right? The practical ways of connecting with them then, right?
And the more grace you can give to them,
Right.
too. I mean,
yeah.
that's been big because, I'm an 8, so sometimes I have trouble with the more rigid thinking ones in my life, that are perfectionists and that do it all the right way, because I'm like, just wing it. We can get this project done, or whatever. So
You got to have a 7 in your family.
we have 2 7s. We have 2 7s. We are not them.
I'm positive Carter's one.
Yeah, Carter is one. Yeah. So there's a lot of fun, and that's actually important because sometimes, as 7s are growing up, they may be more into having fun than to getting things done. And so I had to kind of adjust. A couple years ago, I realized, like you said, Carter, he's our 21-year-old. When he came home from college, he would work, but in between working, he wanted to have fun. And he actually wants to have fun with us as a
that's
family.
awesome.
Yeah.
And so one thing he absolutely loves is card games,
Okay.
board games, any games, at 2 p.m. And it's really hard for me because that's not what you're supposed to do at 2 p.m, play a card game. But it's actually kind of fun when you kind of step outside. And as parents, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to figure out how to connect with our kids, even when they're 21, and that's huge. So
How early do you think you were able to identify some of those tendencies in your kids? Because, our oldest daughter, she did the Enneagram,
Yeah.
came back as a 4, so the kind of artist mentality. But, our son at 10, I just don't know. I mean, is that going to be any kind of a real thing? I mean, how did you kind of identify some of those things in your kids so that you could start using some of these social tools out there to help you in your connections?
Well, we just came across the Enneagram really in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So our kids most of them are all older than that. So certainly the love languages, I think, start showing up pretty young.
Pretty early.
With their physical touch or words of affirmation, that really builds them and helps them. Quality time.
It's a huge one.
So I would say pretty young age. Just with our differences, it also helps you. You have different perspective on your children. I do from Brooke. And so you can help them understand a situation that they're just not getting, why this child is acting this way or doing it. And I can say, oh, I can see that.
Yeah.
This is what's going on, and vice versa. So you kind of learn together and you make each other stronger.
Yeah.
Obviously
We spend a
working together.
lot of time talking about our kids with each other. Like
Okay.
a lot of time. Maybe too much, but we have a lot
Sometimes
of kids.
it's a date killer. Really.
Costco hot dogs and talk about your kids.
It's like, okay, no more talk of the kids.
We got to drop it.
Yeah.
But we do, because he is a natural connector. He's a peacemaker, but he's also a huge connector. It kind of came naturally. He's playful engagement. That's what he did when they were toddlers. I used to get irritated that he was, fun dad, and I was like, laying the law. But he formed a great connection with our kids young, and he also can see that I get worked up over certain situations. That it's more really about me accepting some humility, being teachable, trying to understand more so than anything else. He has the patience of Job. I've always said that. I do not. So
Can you give maybe a specific example from just in general to kind of frame this for us?
Maybe a recent example from earlier today.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not ready to. I'm not ready for that one yet. I was a
Date
little,
night right now.
I was a little worked up today. you could share. You could share.
Well, I don't know if it's resolved, obviously.
Even better, okay.
No, it doesn't have to
No,
be
it doesn't
today.
have to be today. But real life in real time, yeah.
Again, a lot of people in our house. For example, we have one kiddo that's really into food and gets very worked up about food and asking constantly what we're going to have and is there enough? And for my 8 Enneagram personality, one thing we don't like to be is kind of questioned or perceive that we're not doing our job or that we're not handling things well. And, you know, I'm the shopper and I'm the cooker. So I want to be able to, so it wounds me more with, and it's not his intention.
Right.
And so, but I tend to be shorter and more frustrated with him, you know, enough. We're, you know, no.
Yeah.
And
Stop.
Stop.
Yeah.
You don't get anything else to eat. And it's more really about how I'm perceiving he's judging me on. And Joel's helped me realize that it's really more about that than it really is about the food or the meal or the criticism. It's really not that, because actually he's my biggest fan at the same time because he's really into food, so he's going off about when there's a good meal and all that. But and so it helps when Joel points out, now would you be this worked up if it was another child?
Oh, good point.
Ooh, okay. So that's been a reoccurring thing this summer, and I'm trying to have a little more humility around it, but be a little more teachable. But
And that, you know, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but like, do you feel like God has really been shaping you and transitioning you through this process of parenting? And how has that looked individually for you? Like, how has God worked in you and changed you through this process of parenting?
Trying to function as a family of 9, really, I call on James 1:5, you know, if you lack wisdom, ask, because there are days upon days and weeks upon weeks that we just lack wisdom, and I have to go before the Lord and say, Lord, help me, because I don't know the answers. We don't have it all figured out, you know, but we have seen that purposefully trying to connect with each one of our kids has been huge on an emotional level for them, and really for us, we've been transformed. I'm able to see adults, friends of mine with different personality types, and give them grace. I see, you know, I'm more grace-filled, you know, and that's been huge for me.
That's saying something as an 8.
The biggest compliment anybody can give me as an 8 is, oh my gosh, I never would have pegged you as an 8. You're like, yes! You know, because we don't love to, you know, because I don't have to challenge everything. I do have a 9 wing, I think, but I think it's because I've been married to this man for 28 years, and he is a 9 through and through, so.
Rubbing off in a good way.
I think he is.
Joel, what about you? Any, like...
Gave me a better understanding of God, my Father in heaven. And in so many areas I can see on the horizontal and things in my life and my children, than my relationship with the Lord, and how I love my kids, not based on what they can do, how good they are, can they perform. Like I said, I care about the heart, and I love them no matter what. Helps me understand how much the Lord loves me. And that when I screw up and I'm not a good dad or whatever, that, you know, it's not my performance that gets me to be with the Lord. That it's just, I'm His. Knowing that there's more than just this. It goes on, like she said, and the heart and our kids are eternal, and we're eternal and with the Father. So that's probably the best thing.
One thing that Cori and I have talked a lot about with our kids is when our kids are old enough to choose and they're out of our house, we hope they choose to want to be with us. One cool thing we see is we feel like we see your kids do that with you guys. And, you know, that's an important thing because we want to have a relationship with our kids later on. Like, we want them to want to be around us, and we want them to want us to be around them. And, you know, older teenage kids, it sounds like, can be challenging to be with because they don't want to be with you. I mean, just some practical steps of connecting with your kids in order to help maintain that relationship, and then just being open for having a relationship with them later on.
I could say a couple things that have been just, I would say, family traditions to create connection, not only us to our kids, but then the kids with each other, their siblings, is Well, I started, probably one of the best things I ever did as being a dad is I started writing a birthday letter to each child every year. And I probably started it, 20 years. Kenna was probably 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just once a year, but I would write her a little letter, and when they're younger, I would just write kind of all the different stuff that happened that year with them. What they were doing, who their teachers were, what they were doing, and then obviously, and just how special and amazing they are, and how I'm so grateful to be their dad, and always be there for you, and just try to build them up and encourage them that way. And so it doesn't seem like a lot. It's once a year, times 7. For years, it became a huge kind of like challenge, And then as I get older, you're not doing you played basketball for this, and you did this, but it's more just, again, just how special, how you see them growing up, and even though it's just once a year, I know that just again builds more connection, that how they're special and how they're loved, and I think that was just one of the best things, and they'll and then we just give them a whole box of all those letters, like when they leave the house, and I don't know how special they'll be to them, but they're kind of special to me. You break them out and you read them, and you remember.
So have you given them those letters?
Yeah,
yet?
so he gives it to them every year, and usually reads it on their birthday to them one-on-one. Usually not in front of everybody. No. But and then often we'll just keep them.
Yeah.
Just because things get lost.
Yeah.
I know. It's shocking. But
and then I got to try to find them. I got a spot kind of for them, but So. And then the other thing that kind of came off of that is at every birthday, I would do the little letter, but then we started having, all the kids would make a personal homemade card for whoever the birthday kid is. And every sibling would write one and do it up. And so they're all just very personal and special. And so they get saved, a lot of the time. And then along with that, as we're having the birthday dinner, which again, Brooke makes whatever they want, kind of a meal, whichever they're always excited about. And then they'll talk about, well, what are you going to have at your birthday dinner?
It's like a whole thing.
And, but it's really fun, and we'll kind of go around the table and just have speaking an encouraging word, why you love, what do you appreciate about this person? And everyone goes around and says something. And it really, you just see the connection. You see how they love each other and what they notice about each other. And a lot of it's overlap, obviously, but then there'll be different ones that have something special that they connect with that sibling. And that's been one of the best things. And again, it's once a year for each person, but that's all the time in our house. It's like somebody's birthday. And but that, for the whole family, it just has built a lot of connection.
And nobody wants to miss anybody else's birthday dinner. It's like a thing. And so for Kenna, our oldest, who's married, and they like to FaceTime in on the birthday pops. Okay. They call it pops because the first person to pop says it first. I don't know, it's a silly thing around the table, but they want to be part of it, which I thought is kind of hilarious. So for the last couple of years, we FaceTime them in on everybody's birthday, and it's been a kind of a neat thing. So
you're building connection between yourself and the kids, but also kind of that web of connection amongst the kids. So it's the whole family that you're trying to cultivate relationships in.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So do you guys have any kind of final, I just kind of want to give you the mic drop, any kind of parenting word or anything that you want to share?
Doesn't have to be around health
Doesn't
or
have
connection.
to be around health
or
connection, but it maybe just even a lesson. What do you think?
Hardest thing you'll ever do?
Yeah.
Best thing you'll ever do?
Yeah.
Most important thing you'll ever do.
All right.
Thanks for joining us, you guys.
Thanks you guys.
For joining them.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for joining us for this session on health and family connection. We hope you enjoyed this time that we spent with Brooke and Joel and some of the amazing things they talked about, from connections on birthdays to birthday letters to family dinners, relationships between each other, relationships with our kids.
Yeah, I think health is probably one of the most difficult topics because it could be a whole group of sessions in so many ways. So we hope you guys got some takeaways. We know we did, and hope you join us here for the next session of the Family Table.
Thanks for joining us.